going on, Aces Axis fans? September 19th here at Funkin' Waffles, and we have Apollo Suns in the house tonight. I am super excited because we've had bands on here that have played internationally, but this is our first international band on the channel. They're from Winnipeg, Manitoba, which is all the way up in Canada. So I guess not crazy far from here. How far would it be if I traveled from here to your guys' place?
It's like straight north of Fargo, North Dakota.
So it's definitely a little bit.
So like 30 hours?
Oh jeez, yeah. So definitely a little bit of a travel.
Trek, yeah.
Is this your guys' first time to Central New York?
Playing, I think this is our first New York gig playing.
That's awesome.
Actually, we've traveled through, but we've done a lot of the U.S., but not New York yet.
Yeah, I've played Oneonta with a different band.
Yes, yeah.
And New York City and Long Island, but this is Apollo Sun's first time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to Syracuse, New York. You guys are extremely talented. I usually start with these interviews. I get to pick the bands I do with these. It's not one of those things where it's just like every Thursday a band comes through and everything like that. And you guys sound like you could make the coolest movie soundtrack I've ever heard. And I mean that in a very awesome way. There's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of dynamics, but underneath it all, there just seems to be just fun. What are your guys' main influences? Because I couldn't be like, oh, they listen to a lot of Parliament, they listen to a lot of Santana, and they just made a band. Are there particular influences that you guys like, or is it just everything comes all together and that's what Apollo Suns is?
I think everything kind of comes together because I feel like we've, bands in their first development years, like the first 5 years, wear their influences pretty heavily on their sleeves.
Right.
And in the music, we've kind of, I think, I'm sure people can listen to us and pick out what you just did, pick out all these influences. But for the most part, I think we've kind of gone beyond that to like what we think Apollo Sun sounds like, at least in 2024, because that changes from different players in the band or different situations. But I think it's a mixture of both. But I kind of just figure out like what I want the music to sound like or what I think we should sound like.
Right.
That's kind of it. It's a melting pot.
Yeah, and I think like a lot of us are coming from very diverse musical backgrounds.
Awesome.
Like Ed's coming from a rock and a prog background, and a lot of the other players who've cycled through the band over time, myself included, are coming from a jazz school background.
Oh, cool.
So there's, Lettuce and Snarky Puppy, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that just goes into it.
And I can definitely hear that from where the first EP, Each Day a Different Sun, was compared to the LP, which you guys put out in September 2023. It sounds like that's another thing I wanted to say besides it sounded like a movie. It almost sounds like you were a 70s band that played on a Tonight Show almost, where you had to play 40 different styles of music, but you did it all awesomely, and you had to do like little 30-second snippets and everything like that. Yeah. So you guys are talented beyond belief. Are you all musically, did you come from musical backgrounds where you actually understand sheet music and music theory, or is it just from playing together you guys have just kind of created a bond?
Well, my family isn't musical at all.
No, understand. Neither was mine.
The most I got was Rod Stewart and Fleetwood Mac Rumors for my mom, and Eagles When Hell Freezes Over.
Yep.
So I'm not the deepest of things, but it's good enough.
Right.
I mean, being in a band, you come across, or just being in any sort of community, you get exposed to so much. So whether it's at like jam sessions or songwriting sessions or playing 150 shows with different people and the other bands that we interact with on tour can have an influence, especially when we get shit kicked by that band, which can happen, even though we are immensely talented, as you have so kindly said.
No, totally.
It's happened for sure, and then we take lessons from that band. Sweet. But
I also didn't come from a super musical family, but I did go to music school.
Awesome.
And so it's a really interesting collaborative process when it comes time to write music, because half the band does have that, sheet music, heavy music theory background, and half the band doesn't.
Right.
And, figuring out our language to sort of express the ideas in ways that we each can agree upon, and like different aesthetic choices. Like, I'm always like, okay, well, are we really sure that this one note that's just a passing tone in the melody doesn't really fit with the chord, so let's just tear it all apart. And it's like, if it sounds good, it sounds good. And I think we're sort of like coming together and starting to find a happy middle.
Well, the album sounds like that. It's absolutely fantastic.
I typically try not to let theory ruin a good song.
Right. That's great. That's a great way to think about it. And I'm totally guitar player, so it's like, I don't understand sheet music. And I was like, well, Hendrix didn't understand how to read sheet music, so I'm not going to. And, but I had noticed that there was one of your videos, the one for Hard Time. You were in the studio and everything, and I noticed all the sheet music, and I was like, geez, that's a lot of stuff I don't understand already. Is that the studio where you recorded the album? Because it looked like an absolute beautiful place.
Yeah, it was nice, yeah.
Was that in Canada, I'm guessing?
Yeah, that was No Fun Studios in Winnipeg.
That's awesome. Absolute beautiful place. So how long did it take to record the album there?
We did 10 days there, and then we did 2 other recording dates to get Through the Woods and Beyond the Woods. But I think we got, 10 songs in 10 days.
That's awesome.
But we came in obnoxiously overprepared to the point where there was no spontaneity in the studio with the album. So it was like we knew exactly what we were going to play for the amount of bars, and god damn you if you wanted to do anything that was different.
Studio time's expensive. Studio time's expensive.
Well, it was a COVID album, right?
Yeah.
So like
I noticed the mask in a couple of the scenes.
Yes.
So like we'd intended to go into the studio in like October 2020.
That's right.
And we had a whole different set of songs, but like we couldn't get together to rehearse or to write at all. And so what we wound up doing is like basically MIDI demoing everything. And there were elements of that process that I really liked because we could really get into the details and get into the nitty gritty and play around with arrangements and like move sections around, and then have all of the tunes written out, charted out before we even got together to play them. And then once we get together, it's like, okay, this part doesn't actually work, or
right,
whatever. But yeah, it was very, very meticulous, and there were some positives, but I think in the next album, we're gonna give ourselves a little bit more space for exploration and discovery in the studio.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm a metal guy and a punk guy, and I always talk about how I love Slayer because Jeff Hanneman's hard left, Kerry King's hard right, and it sounds like they were just both in the studio jamming together, and that's kind of how I grew up as a guitar player and everything. So I always have a little bit of fondness for that in my heart. So I'm excited to hear that. And there was another video, if you can't tell, I got Killer Clowns tattoos and Lego tattoos, so I enjoy art, claymation, all that stuff. The video for Serpentine, I heard it was a fan that basically presented the idea to you guys and did that. How exactly did that come about? Did they just kind of contact you and they were like, hey, I've got this idea, and you were like, go ahead? Or was there a collaborative kind of process?
Is William Bridges. I think he's like one of the Carolinas. He's a US based guy.
Oh, you were very, very talented then, Mr. Bridges. Super, super awesome.
He started following the band, and during the pandemic, I had so much time that I would just like go through and just like look at who was following us and then just like respond to everything, which I still try to do. But I noticed he did claymation, and I thought it was cool, and I love claymation, and being a Frank Zappa fan, and like the token of his extreme is all claymation stuff, and way before Peter Gabriel did it as well. He gets all the credit, but Zappa was like 8 years before. But anyway, regardless.
Understand. The Sledgehammer is a dope video. Is that the one you were talking about?
Yeah. Oh, it's great. So we kind of bounced around, like, so we were like, okay, Serpentine, it's got the word serpent in there, and I was like, what if the band is just flying around in space and we have to fight this giant snake?
Yeah.
And then just kind of grew out of there, and then I kind of kind of went back and forth. It's a pretty simple story. Just like the snake eats all the planets, and then Anatole saves us, and then we have to with the guitar, and then we use the power of music.
Yes, yeah.
Maybe the power of friendship.
Right. It's like a Tenacious D story a little bit.
Yeah.
But I just think it's absolutely so cool. And two of my favorite videos of all time are the Tool Sober video and Sepultura, the Brazilian heavy metal band, have a video that's like that for Rada Matada.
Right.
So as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God. So big ups to one of your fans for doing that, because that is a lot of time and effort and everything like
Absolutely.
that. So I thought that was one of the coolest things.
Yeah.
So in these interviews, before we talk gear, I usually try to bring up certain tones that I think are just like the shit, basically, and compliment and just ask how exactly you got them. So Through the Woods, you kick the album off, minute and a half in, you rock a solo just to kind of just be like, this is a guitar record. Do you know what it sounds like? If you were using your boogie, like you cranked it up, put a clon on it, and just cranked it. Do you remember what you used for that tone?
It definitely wasn't my boogie, but we recorded it at Paintbox, which is in Winnipeg. It was like our secondary studio. But Lloyd, the engineer and studio owner, has a boogie from like the 60s. So we just dimed that thing and put on, it might have been a muff and a clon, and then a boost pedal, and it was just like, and then it was my Godin, which are built in Montreal. They gave me a guitar.
Oh, that's awesome. They're a great company.
Yeah, and then it was the neck pickup, and it was pretty much just like running takes, and then Aaron and Anatole were just yelling things at me, because we recorded it live like in the control room, so even though they were yelling at me, like everything was mic'd out in the live room.
Yeah.
So it was just them yelling like instructions like, try this, or do this, or hold that note, and that's that. And then the horns come in, and you know, it's funny, you say it's a guitar album, I don't think it's a guitar album. Like there are definitely guitar songs in there,
right?
But it's not to me a guitar album.
And even especially compared to our earlier stuff, like it's way more horn heavy.
I would say
Which
that,
is great.
but I guess as a guitar player, you let it be known at least, like you're not forgotten about for the first track and everything. So I appreciate that. And then the keyboard tone that I wanted to talk about, it's about 3 minutes into the second song, Sisyphus. Did I pronounce it? Sisyphus. About 3 minutes in, it kind of stops. You kind of do your thing. To me, it sounds like a sophisticated video game. In all honesty, I'm a Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis guy, and when I heard it, I was like, oh, it's the most high-def video game. So
that's for the synth solo.
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. So jazz nerds out there are gonna know the Corey Henry solo on Lingus.
Okay, I do not, so I'll have to check it out.
It's a snarky puppy classic, but I found out later I'm using the same synth that is still part of my rig, and I think it is the same patch. But
that's awesome.
Basically, so I'm playing on a King Korg.
Yes.
Which is a digital analog modeler.
Yeah, I've never seen that model, because when I saw King, I was like, oh, I don't remember, because working at Guitar Center, you see the micro Korgs and everything, and I was like, oh, this must be like the Boss kind of thing, and I've never seen it. So.
Yeah, so that edition that I have was fairly short-lived. They've reissued it recently, and it kind of sucks. But that OG one is so good. It's like it's got all of the flexibility of digital, but just like really great analog emulation. It has a little tube in there.
Yes.
So you can really warm up the tone, drive it, make it snarl really nicely. And it's a really versatile, flexible keyboard, and I love it a lot. I had one stolen out of the back of my car.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Because it's Winnipeg. But,
right.
Because nothing ever gets stolen in any other city.
It was stupidity on my behalf. But anyway, I found like another one came up along McQuaid for like $500 a couple years later, and I'd been searching for like 2 years in the interim for something to replace it, and nothing came up other than like investing in a Jupiter or a Juno or like a Prophet or something huge and big that like kind of does one thing well.
Right.
But there weren't any all-rounders that I would be comfortable touring with, and then another one came up and I snapped it up so fast, and I still have it, and it's still sounds great.
Yeah, I love seeing the little preamp tube. There was a band from Rochester, and it was a huge Korg piano. It was like all 88 keys, but it actually had a preamp tube in it and everything. But I mean, full 88 keys.
Korg SB1.
Yes, that thing sounded fantastic.
I used to play on one of those, and that was also stolen at the same time.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And I loved that keyboard at the time, and I think at the time it came out in like early 2010s.
Okay.
It was an excellent, phenomenal, cutting-edge keyboard. However, there's been so many advances in digital piano technology in the last 10 years. I played another one recently, and I did not like it at all. So now I'm playing a Yamaha CP88, and it sounds so good.
Yeah, Yamaha is one of those companies where I think every single one of these interviews, there's a keyboard on stage, and usually the drums are Yamaha. They seem to just kind of do everything. Those RevStar guitars I really want to check out because everyone says that they're really nice, and Yamaha's a fantastic company. So, and motorcycles obviously from the other side of it and everything like that. So. Talk, and then we'll get you guys out of here and ready to warm up on stage. Or already warmed up and ready to get you on stage. Your Gibson SG. I want to say, everyone always talks shit about Gibsons going in and out of tune and blah, 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 blah. But you are from one of the coldest places in North America, and you play an SG. So very clearly, you don't have a problem. I mean, you're in humidity-wise, temperature-wise, and everything like that. You don't seem to be fighting it and everything like that. So, do you do anything special to your gear during the winter months up there? It gets cold here, but not as cold as you guys.
Me, no, not really.
Cool.
I wouldn't say I'm like precious with my gear.
Understandable.
To the point where it's like scratched up. The pickups have been modded by my guy. That's an entirely different neck.
Oh, cool.
It was rebuilt. We took the fretboard off when it had its 5th headstock displacement.
That's a kind of.
I like that displacement. That's a great term.
I misplaced the headstock, but the last one wasn't me though. It was this band that we were playing with in Missoula. I accidentally knocked it over, but we rebuilt the. But You know, we switched out the Gibson tuners, and I don't know what he put on, but honestly, I've even with the Maestro bar, I've never. It does come out of tune, of course. I have heavy hands,
Right.
But it's like, you know, tune your guitar. Like, that's the nice thing about having a 7-piece is that I don't have to play all the time.
Right.
And in those moments, I tune my guitar almost every song.
Right.
And if something isn't in tune on stage and it's a little out, like, we're human beings playing live music. Like,
Right.
do you want us to be robots?
I'm still gonna give you a look on it.
Yeah, and I'm gonna play more out of tune when you give me that look.
But those are the fun things, because like I think in this day and age with social media, everybody's like, oh, somebody was half a cent off here and there, and it's like, it's rock and roll sometimes, and it's like that's the fun part about seeing bands live, is kind of seeing like, okay, if it's not a perfect night, how do you kind of work with it and everything like that. So fantastic, man.
I think there's a lot of things that make up a really good really good show in general, and tuning is the last thing I think about.
That's awesome.
But some players can play even if they're technically out of tune, but if you're in tune with the music, you know, like,
Right.
you know, I don't know, anyway.
No, totally. And every guitar
What else
has...
is tune your guitar, horns, tune your instruments, and warm up, you know.
Yeah, no, totally.
Make sure your pitch bend wheel is centered, I guess.
Yeah. It's definitely a couple times like, how are you out of tune
Right
now?
It probably like my keytar was like on the ground and the pitch bend wheel was like twisted, and so it was like actually detuning my stuff.
Yeah.
So we all make mistakes. Look at that. So you use wah pedal, you got volume pedal, and then I saw there were 2 Cascade pedals. One of them had your first EP cover.
Yeah.
It looked like, which was super cool on it. I can't say I know anything about them. Are they a custom pedal company?
Yeah, so I forget, it might be Steve. Works out of his basement in North Carolina. He was another.
There's a lot of Carolinas coming with you guys, so that's awesome.
Yeah, he was another lockdown find where I was just on Instagram, and he made a limited edition run of the Harmonic Energizer, which was like the Frank Zappa like cocked wah tone, and that's what the one with the first Apollo Suns EP is. And then I just kind of was like, man, I love this. I love this sound, and he was super into it. He loves Zappa as well.
Yeah.
And then the other one is Trem.
Oh, very
Tremolo.
cool.
So, but he added a bunch of little knobs that I can like really dial in the tone. I'm still trying to find places for it,
Right.
Because I've been swapping out pedals more lately. Like I have my tried and true that need to be there.
Right.
Like what would I be without my wah pedal? You know, like
Right.
Like I'm no Kirk Hammett with the crutch of the wah.
Right.
Like it's definitely there.
Oh, right. I mean, ain't playing any kind of funk. It's like some nights you just kind of got to waka a little bit and everything.
Yeah, totally.
And the band, the last band we talked to, War Park, he actually uses his wah as like an EQ basically. He's like,
it's great for that filter.
Yes, absolutely perfect. So especially playing to the room and everything like that, where some nights it's just super trebly or super bassy and everything. So your MXR, the GT Overdrive, is that your main boost pedal that you use most of the time?
It was, but now I've been using it as like a gain filter in a way. So like when I want to get a little bit more dirtier, I'll turn it on. But to boost in my solos, I've been using that Dan Electro one.
Yes.
It's like $40.
And it was the $1 billion boost, yes. Which looks super cool. And I like how it almost looks like a tuxedo and everything.
Yeah.
So it goes with the name and everything.
But yeah, the MXR was like real. You know when guitar players turn a corner with tone and they're like, more distortion does not equal more volume.
Right.
You know, where like I recently had that epiphany, and I'm way too old to admit that.
No.
But I was like, we had a break, and I was like tearing apart my pedal board. I'm like trying to chase better tone, so the Mesa Boogie came into play, getting rid of the DeVille, and now understand that the boost is when I want to boost a cleaner tone when I'm soloing, and then if I want a dirty, more like vocal, that MXR adds a really nice sustain to it, especially when it's on the neck pickup.
Right, because you have a lot of other people you have to cut through. You don't have just a bass player or another rhythm guitar player.
I'm also a very quiet guitar player, what I've been told, like sound techs, like you can turn up, which is like amazing.
Right, yeah, I was gonna say, yeah, normally the guitar player is the asshole where everybody's like, can you turn down?
Oh yeah, and then Jane Addictions breaks up and here we are.
Yeah. I mean, what was that, 2-3 days ago and everything?
Anyway.
Yeah.
Topical.
So the Fillmore 50 watt, it's got 2 channels. Do you use them completely separate, one clean and one dirty? Is that how you run it?
And then it'll go back and forth for songs, like something like Rosie, I'll like kind of put on the clean depending on how I'm feeling that night. Sometimes if I want a cleaner tone, I'll just roll down the volume and just like, you know, use my hands to get a cleaner tone.
Yeah, totally.
But stuff for like Through the Woods or a new song, ABC, I'll go to clean. Because it's just like, just to get that articulation of like, especially on a delay thing.
Yep.
Yeah, but I want to get to 2 amps where I can blend a clean at some points, and I've been experimenting with 2 amps, but I don't have the funds right now to fully commit.
Yeah, I have 2 boogies and I have a radial tone bone, which is also a Canadian company, I believe.
Yeah.
And once you run them in stereo, it is hard to go back to just hearing one because you're like, oh, every spectrum I get to hear myself in and everything. Before we talk keyboards, I did not want to forget, you guys have one of the most beautiful compositions I have ever heard, in all honesty, and it probably is something that maybe people from the West Coast or warmer climates might not understand. The song Winter's Midnight?
Midnight in
Midnight
Winter.
at Winter.
Yeah.
So, Syracuse gets pretty cold. I mean, I've seen -15 and everything like that. I know compared
Fahrenheit.
I was gonna say, but that song, there's moments where literally, if I close my eyes, it sounds like ice crystals forming.
That was.
It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Who did? Both of you write that? Is that a band composition?
I came with a voice note of like the guitar melodies mostly kind of worked out, like the kind of ideas, and I had this other melody that served as like the bass, and then I handed it to Anatole, and I was like, this is what I want for the structure, and here's how I think it should flow. And we wanted a really dramatic, beautiful middle.
Yeah, when it opens up, it's like you're in a field. You just have to go listen to it, because no matter what I say, it's not going to describe it, but it's...
I love that tune so much.
But Anatole did all the string and the horn orchestration, and we were like, very little drums. We don't write, our ballads are even jazz ballads. We don't write proper, like stripped down stuff. Generally Beyond the Woods and Midnight in Winter are more stripped down, which I want to do more of. But I would say that's the thing I'm most proud of with the band, because it's like, it's just a really nice piece of music.
I was going to say, it's a piece of music. That's something that in 150 years from now, if someone gets the sheet music for, it's not going to be like, oh, it's a punk rock. Like, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. I just wanted to say from the bottom of my musical heart that
Thank you.
It's absolutely fantastic.
I will say, if you have a vinyl copy, please go listen. Yes, vinyl, gorgeous. However, for that song specifically and for Horses, unfortunately we had to truncate the beginnings and the ends of them on vinyl to make it fit, and it just like losing that space to breathe around that tune just breaks my heart every time I listen to it.
On vinyl.
On vinyl. So that's the one time that the digital release is like that much better.
Yeah. I would say if anybody knows somebody that is blind and they want to say, what does winter feel like? Play that song. In all honesty, I don't even it's not a storm, it's the beauty of winter. It's the coldness, it's not despair.
It's uplifting in a way of because winter for me is brutal, but it's a brutal in a way that will make you appreciate other things. But the thing is that brutalness is killer. Like it'll wipe out. If you're not prepared for Winnipeg winter, it can kill you. Like we have frostbite warnings that are like 5 minutes with skin exposed, it'll be frostbitten. But that was written in middle January, and we had glacial snowstorm, and everything was iced over, and it was 3 a.m. maybe, and I couldn't sleep. And I just plugged into the amp with headphones. I'm like, I'm just gonna just come up with this shit and just looking out my window. And then I was like, we need to capture even the guitar tones with the cleanness. I was like, let's make it sound brittle. Like if something was frozen and you dropped it, it would just shatter.
Right.
And that was the point of like that guitar tone and how I articulated the melody at times. Like it was almost falling apart.
And like the thing about a Winnipeg winter is it's very dry. Like we always said, it's dry, cold.
Right.
And there's something about like the very sort of fine snow that we get that just like absorbs all the sound.
Right.
So even though Winnipeg is a city, you know, at midnight, like it's totally still.
I used to-
super quiet.
I used to live
and
out
it just
in
absorbs all the sound. And,
I used to live out in the middle of nowhere, and that was like, it was hard when me and my wife first had our daughter. It was like, it's 45 minutes to get diapers back and forth. So those are the moments where you're like, okay, this sucks. But those moments where you're just sitting outside at 4 a.m. and you just hear nothing but the deer walking by, you know, stuff like that. You're like, oh, this is what life is all about and everything.
Absolutely.
So it makes the -40 worth it.
Maybe. I don't know about that.
Seen the frozen prairie when you go into the city limits and you just see frozen tundra for as far as you can see and the skies are gorgeous. You're like, oh, this is actually really beautiful. God damn.
Yeah. So you have a bunch of keyboards that I've never even heard of, Annie. The King Korg we've talked about.
Yeah.
The Yamaha stage piano we've talked about. But what are the Yamaha Reface YC and the Face CS? I believe I got those correct.
The Reface CS.
Yes. What are those?
So the Reface line is this little sort of mini piano line that Yamaha came out with, and there are 4 variants. There's the YC, which I use, which does an organ, and it's got like Hammond, Vox, Farfisa, and then 2 other transistor organ types. There's the CS Reface, which is we're actually using it as a bass synth, so I'm not playing that one, but it is like an excellent like single oscillator analog synth.
Awesome.
It's got distortion on it. It's got a looper as well, which is super cool.
Oh, that's really fun.
Bunch of really nice effects, and it's like surprisingly versatile. There's the Reface CP, which does electric pianos pretty well. It's like some of the same sounds that I have on board on my.
I was going to say you probably don't need, because it looked like when I was trying to watch videos, it looked like the stage piano, the CP88, you kind of used, I hate to say the word normal piano tones, but it kind of looked like that was your work home for piano tones, and then you kind of used everything else for the fun stuff. It's kind of how it looked like to me.
There's also a DX Reface that does like the Yamaha DX7
very
sound,
cool.
so like FM synth. But those Refaces are great. They're super portable. They can be battery operated.
Nice. Good practice tool then, especially with the looper and everything.
Yeah. The one thing is it's got mini keys, and I hate playing on those.
Right.
So one thing that you might not have seen is I have this little rack set up.
I didn't get too many pictures of it. I'll try to afterwards.
I've got a lot of stuff in there, but one thing that is in there is Motu MIDI Express MIDI interface.
Okay.
So basically, I'm running this software called Cantabile. If anyone is out there on Windows, use Cantabile. It's great. It's kind of like MainStage, but I use that to route all sorts of MIDI signals so that I can, for example, play the organ reface using the key bed of my synth. And I do that because although the CP88 is fantastic, it has atrocious organ sounds.
Oh, okay.
Really bad.
Right.
Because they also have the YC88 Yamaha does, which is like sort of the one step up, and they kind of want to encourage you to buy that one.
Yeah.
But I do like the interface and the layout of the CP better. I do play more electric piano than I play organ, and the CP is like more piano focused, whereas the YC is more organ focused.
Right.
So the reface is just for organ sounds, essentially, which I have MIDI controlled. And then, as you pointed out, the CP88 is my workhorse for all my electric piano sounds, so Rhodes, Whirly, clav, a couple of pads, and then the King Korg is my synth for like solos mostly. We don't play that many tunes with like synth pads in them, but that's where I would get them.
Now, I obviously no vocals. Have you ever thought about adding a vocoder?
We
I'm
have.
a guitar guy, so I always just think, you know, like, I don't want to say the stupid stuff, but I'm like, oh, vocoders are fun, you know,
Yeah.
and everything. Have you ever...
We've talked about it in the King Chord can vocode.
Yeah, so, you know, just an idea and everything.
Yeah.
So I love the fact that you have a keytar.
Yeah.
Do you use a certain song every night, or is it just kind of like, it's time to get up and dance, and I'm just going to switch on over to it?
We've kind of found there's like 2 songs that really work super well with the keytar. There's a couple more that I can throw it in.
Right.
I usually try to limit it to once, maybe twice per set.
Awesome.
I don't want it to be too much of a gimmick. I also want it to like make sense in the set.
Totally.
But it is really nice to, you know, get out from behind the station and get in on the choreo that we have. You know, if you listen to our albums, it's kind of one thing, but then when you see our live show, it's like...
You guys bring the fire. You guys are awesome.
Yeah, it's a bit of a different experience for sure. So getting in on that stuff and getting weird and wild is really fun.
That's great. That's great.
And it's an Alesis Vortex Wireless 2. It's actually just a MIDI controller, so it doesn't have any onboard sounds. And again, I'm using the same software just to basically play all the tones from my King chord just on the keytar.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you guys so much for sitting down and agreeing to do this. This is super cool of you guys and everything like that. What is the best way for everybody to keep track of you? Instagram, Facebook, webpage? What's the best way?
Instagram is great. If you message the band or engage, it'll be me you're talking to. We have TikTok for all stupid stuff, you know. Facebook's great for... Benjamin, who's in the background right now, our trombone player, there's this really unknown social media, but it's ethical, quote unquote, and it's called Supernova.
Cool.
And Benjamin's like a deal,
Benjamin is one of the most active users on
awesome.
the social media website.
UK Supernova people.
Is it an Oasis reference? Is that?
I don't know. Maybe,
and then the fact that it's UK, it might be an Oasis thing, and then you could be huge with that reunion coming up. So definitely keep going with it.
I think there's like 40 people on the app.
Well, you never know. You can still be huge.
We do have a Supernova page.
Yeah, there's what else? We have a website. We got an email list. You can listen everywhere and anywhere. And when we're on, we have a Reddit page or a Reddit channel that I'm very active with. So
cool.
Yeah.
Check out the videos on YouTube that I had mentioned. Go check out the music's on Spotify and everything. But please, 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 if you do nothing else, go listen to Midnight at Winter, just for an emotional roller coaster. Put some headphones on or nice studio monitors and literally just escape from the world for a few minutes and enjoy it. So thank you so much for doing this. This has been super awesome. If you're not here yet, get down, bring your dancing shoes, because we are ready to have some fun tonight. Thank you guys. Bye. Peace. Awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys so much. It was so nice. You guys are so nice. This is awesome.
Also, good questions.
Yeah,
it's
great
very
questions.
good.
Yeah.
Not get the usuals.
I was entertained by that.